So folks, welcome to this online discussion on prepping for the Unconference that will be held prior to the OGP Summit at the Shaw Conference Center on Wednesday, May 29th. To get us going, I'd really love to get a sense of who is here. And again, thanks for everyone who is putting information into the roll call. But just to get us started, I'd love to hear some voices. So Richard, you were so gracious enough to start this all off. I would love it if you just came off of mute and told us who you are and what your current data literacy challenges and priorities
are. Thank you, Dirk. I'm actually a restaurant server who's very active in open government and open data. And what I try to do is create civic engagement as art, so like this people understand or can understand the value of open gov and open data as a sort of a gateway. And one of the things that I do is something called an open data Iron Chef, which is a workshop for high school students and university students to have fun with open data.
Oh, that sounds great. That is excellent. Thank you so much for that. Megan, can I ask you to come off mute and tell us about what you do and your current data literacy challenges? Maybe not. Megan, if you let me just see if Megan's dropped off. Megan's dropped off of our list. Sorry about that, folks. Carol, would you mind coming off of mute and telling us about your organization and what you're doing with defending land and environmental defenders?
Hi, everyone, and hi, Dirk. My name is Carol Excel. I work at the World Resources Institute. We are supporting a coalition called Defending Land and Environmental Defenders, and we've been collecting incident data, what we call beyond the killing, so incident data of threats, criminalization, and violence in 4 pilot countries, and also trying to consolidate global data sets to see what types of trends we see, but also to try and see if we can use the data to force governments to do their own tracking of these types of threats. And we're now at a very pivotal point where we're trying to see what we're getting from our pilot projects and trying to consolidate some of the global data sets. So it's getting to be quite challenging at this stage of the process.
Great. Well, hopefully throughout the day, you'll be able to both share more deeply about what those challenges are and also maybe tap some brains in terms of similar experiences and ways that people have overcome those. Let me just see. Let me go ahead and tell you guys a little bit more about how to get the most out of the conference. I plan to spend a little bit of time on that, and then I want to let you guys have a little bit of an opportunity to talk to each other. So after I've gone over what's happening with the Unconference, I'll let you guys do some small group breakouts to talk more deeply about what topics you want to explore during the Unconference and what you might want to learn from other participants. We'll also do some report backs on that, but if you are on the Google Doc, you will notice that there is a section that is currently at the bottom that says questions. I do want to make sure, and we definitely will, we've got time for everyone to get their questions answered. So we would just want to make sure that everything is demystified about what the Unconference Day is like, and absolutely make sure that your questions are answered by the end of the call. So those are our goals. In terms of getting the most out of the Unconference, I'm quite fond of paraphrasing former U.S. President John F. Kennedy in terms of ask not what you can do for others, but ask what others can do for you. So one of the most common pitfalls that people will do when they are coming together with other people is they will start to think about, oh, what do I need to give? Like, what do I need to put out there in terms of my project, my presentation? How do I explain my work? how do I give to others in terms of my own experience? And in terms of the unconference, what really works well is when you do the reverse, in terms of understanding what others might be able to do for you. So is there a challenge? Is there a question? Is there something you can do that will put brains to work? So this is a really great opportunity for you to be able to sit down with peers and put their brains to work. So this is very much in terms of the, like, you know, what can other people do for you? So this is, it is very much about active engagement via two-way dialogue and interactive exercises, as opposed to a passive one-way broadcast of a panel and presentation model at a standard conference. You're going to have an opportunity to connect to peers, like I said, and engage them in your work in a meaningful way. Now, the way that the unconference will work next week, just so you get a little sense of the schedule, we're going to start with coffee at 8:30. So you'll have an opportunity to get there, get into the room, and be able to start meeting and greeting other people. We are going to start promptly at 9 o'clock, and we're going to begin with an opening circle, and then a couple of different interactive plenary exercises that will get you to learn about who is in the room. So I'm going to get you guys to break down into small groups, have some discussions. We're also going to do a World Cafe style exchange, and I can explain more deeply later if anyone is interested in what that is. But basically, like, we're going to have an interactive period of question and answers on a variety of different topics to start to get your brains going and also have that deeper understanding of who is there. After that, we will do small group brainstorms so that you can create session topics, and we can then figure out different sessions and who is going to do what. And that's how the rest of the morning will run, with these different sessions. At 12:30, you'll have an opportunity to do even more network and exchange over lunch. And then we will come back at 1:30, and we'll run something called Skillshare. And the Skillshare is a really fast-paced, interactive one-on-one exchange of skills and expertise. And the Skillshare doesn't have to be on data literacy. It can be on anything. So it can be about how do you knit, how do you draw, how do you code. But the main point of the Skillshare is just for you to teach something to someone else on a one-on-one or one-on-two in roughly 45 minutes. We're going to end the whole thing by 4:30 with an interactive plenary identifying projects and topics to take forward into the OGP Summit, but also beyond that. To be thinking a little bit more clearly about what you might be walking into for the unconference is really this, what are the key questions in your data literacy work that you could benefit from learning from others that others may have answered? And also, are there challenges you are facing that would be helpful to learn if others have faced them as well? Now, you noticed in the doc that I am cleverly reading from, there is a link there to how to get the most out of an unconference. That is the blog post that we have posted and gotten you all to look at. You can look at that more deeply and use it as a reference if there's more things you want to learn. We have lots of stuff in there, both in terms of what are interactive exercises you might want to pull on if you are doing a session, and also how to better design a session. So what I want to do now is give you guys an opportunity to meet each other and have a little opportunity to have an exchange. So I am going to put you into small breakout rooms, and what'll happen in the small breakout rooms, what I want you to do is talk about what topics you might want to explore during the unconference and what you might want to learn from other participants. if somebody from room one, Juan, Pane, or David, if you could come off a mute and just tell me a little briefly about what you guys talked about, that would be super helpful. And too many Juans here. Room one. Can someone from room one come off mute and tell me about their exchange and what you got out of it specifically?
Okay, well, I'm David.
Hi, David.
Hi. And I guess we could have used couple more minutes because mostly I was learning about the experience in Juan's region, and I guess unfortunately as a technologist, I'm always interested in the technical perspective, and I found out at the end that he has quite a rich background in a common area, so I'm looking forward to discussing that. But really, it was, from his perspective, the overall government interfacing with them, that experience.
Great, and I apologies for the cutoff on not giving you guys enough time, because I'm also seeing that with the first group there that's put stuff in. I guess that's group 4. Is that group 4? And just to say that that's great though that you guys wanted to talk to each other and get to know each other well, because we will be doing a lot of that on the Wednesday. Let me get room 2, the 2 ones, Ilda and Social Tick and Jesse. If one of you could come off mute and tell me what you got out of your conversation.
Well, apparently you have to be named Juan to participate in open data in Latin America. But that's a joke. No. One of the things we had in common was basically we were facing challenges regarding topic open data agendas, and how to not only governments but also civil society identifying and have the capacity to generate open data on those broader topics. And we're talking about gender, climate change, contracting, that kind of issues. So we had that in common.
That's great. That's great. And let me see. So Nadi's room, I think that's room 4. If somebody could come off mute and tell me a little bit about what you guys talked about and what you got out of it.
So I guess we just got to introduce each other and tell what were our expectations, like where are we joining the unconference. Each of us had a vision on like why they want to be in an unconference, but I don't want to, like, Carol or Richard, do you want to talk about what, because I've been helping Dirk organizing the unconference.
So I can just jump in. So I talked a little bit more about some of the things I'm interested in learning from others. So issues around privacy for sensitive data. For us, we're trying to figure out about issues of consent for different types of data that we're collecting. Consolidation issues around global and national data sets. How to do that responsibly when you have a lot of different sources, government sources and civil society sources, and different requirements for different sources. For example, some sources require like 3 confirmed independent sources that someone has been killed, for example, and others only 2. So differences in things like that. And then uploading different data, different forms from different countries to one portal. Some questions around that, and questions around visualization of some of this data to make it impactful. As always, a big question. I mean, I've attended a lot of different sessions on that, but then when you have to do it yourself, it gets difficult. And then Nati spoke about wanting to support when data projects fail, what you learn from them, if there are sessions on that. And then Richard also spoke about how, a little bit about how his work is reaching out to new people, new different groups, making open data more appealing for people to do, and why he attends open data conferences, and how it's been much more helpful than regular conferences. So I think it was a good breakout session.
Yeah, it was super interesting.
Good. I was actually trying to talk and I was on mute. I first of all, apologies for not giving you guys a little bit more time to talk and get to know each other. I've always had that thing with these of trying to make sure that we do have a good, solid slice of time to get your questions answered in terms of what's coming up. But I'm really heartened. And I think the other thing, just this thing that I've been doing in terms of the report backs. What's really critical for me is to get that data in terms of what it is that you actually want to learn. What has this experience been like, so that we can keep an ear out to what sessions and topics are coming up at the Unconference, and make sure that the conversations that you need to have happen actually have happened. But of course, I think the big thing to say in terms of the Unconference, right, is that everything is very much participant driven. So the other piece of this is for you guys to start to get a little bit of that flavor of what you can do and what conversations do you want to have, what do you want to engage others on. So everything that you guys have written down here is stuff that we can potentially take forward into the Unconference and do stuff with, and have some very good things come out of. I have said questions, but I thought maybe it might be good. I know there's a couple of people on this call that have done Unconferences in the past, and I thought maybe it might be helpful to get them to share a little bit in terms of, and apologies because this has not been forewarned, but if you could share some tips in terms of, if you've done an Unconference before, what would you tell others to get them better prepared for what is upcoming? I'm going to pause for a minute and see if anyone wants to volunteer before I start calling some people out.
I'm just wondering about, I guess I would call them props. I mean, I've been in a lot of Unconferences. Sometimes, whiteboard tools are used, and sometimes people give little mini presentations. Is that going to be accommodated?
For mini presentations?
Well, yeah, for example, if we get into a discussion of something maybe easier to show, like a website or something like that, rather than hand waving.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's a great point, and I think, and it's a really good thing. Yes, we do want people to share stuff, and yes, that is likely to come out. It's really good when that comes in the middle of a session rather than at the beginning. But to say we do not have, we've got some whiteboards around. We do not have projectors, right? And I would go for more of the, like, let's get, if you want to show something, and if people are sharing off of a laptop or a computer screen, that's more than some form of screen, that's more than welcome. But we don't have the sort of, like, your standard presentations, and I apologize for that, David. Let me just say, Juan, can I ask you, Juan Manuel from, I have so many, let me get all the Juans, but Juan Manuel, I know you've done Unconferences before. Do you have any tips for people on maybe how to get the most out of them?
Yeah, I mean, recently, especially the ones on open data, since communities have matured, the first tip is to, send the message across to those that have been around in open data for a while, to be meaningful, but not egotistical regarding those participants that are entering the context. No, so we have a lot to share, but we should not monopolize and tell our stories in our projects to those that are entering the open data scene. And just to be mindful of that, so identify there's intro and there's more senior people in the room. And the other tip is that there should be both spaces for introductory and very specialized conversations, no? And the point there is just to be clear and to have like proper questions that identify what should be spoken about. So sometimes it's better to have smaller groups addressing specific issues than larger groups that basically talk about everything and nothing.
Yeah. So, and I think there's a trick in there in terms of if you want to do, if you're wanting to have a session and it's on a specific subject, what is really critical is for you to have the like 1 or 2 sentence thing that you can say, this is what we are now going to talk about in this session. So it's really clear to people about what the focus is going to be. And then I think the other thing, so we are going to try to design this in a way where we will, there'll be concurrent sessions going on at once. People will have that ability to vote with their feet in terms of the sessions, but we are going to limit, right, the size of them. We want to make sure that the size of the sessions are not going to be too many people, so that we can have better, more intimate, focused discussions. So that's really helpful, Juan. I'm very grateful that you came and shared with that. Anyone else have any other tips for an unconference that would be valuable to share?
Hi, this is Juan from Paraguay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Carol. Go ahead, Carol.
Oh, no, sorry, go ahead, Juan. I can come after you.
Yeah, go ahead, Juan, and then Carol.
Yeah. So one of the things that I remember happened in, what was it, Costa Rica, was that there was a person trying to monopolize his own view in a group, and being mindful on how to stop this politely is something that we should be very careful about. Because it happens when you have people with, as Juan Manuel said, with a lot of experience and also with very strong points of view, that we should be really clear about being respectful of other opinions and give space for all the people in the session to talk. This is super important to me. And we should be really, really, really explicit about that. Otherwise people, I mean, that's how people can tell them, no, you have spoken too much, and now let other people speak too. That's something that was interesting in Costa Rica and some of the groups that I was managing also.
Yeah, and Juan, I got to say that is an excellent point and a good tip for everyone. So, one of the main guidelines for this is, we want to be inclusive as possible. And what's really critical is that everybody in a session gets to contribute. So I'm quite fond of that guideline of if you're participating in a session, speak to the nth, right? And the nth being the number of people that are in that session. And do your best, and it's that thing too of like, help us enable that inclusivity, be an active partner in our inclusivity and making sure everyone can talk. So certainly, everyone's contribution is valuable. It's just we have to make sure that there's enough space for everybody to do that contribution. So that's really good. Carol, you had some wisdom you wanted to share.
I don't know if it's wisdom. I have something to share, but then I have a question. So I think I like unconferences for sure. I think they're most successful where you have great facilitators and clear objectives to come out of each session. And also they're successful when, you have multiple amazing sessions and there's some notes from different sessions. Even if you didn't participate in that session, you can get a sense of what happened in another session. And one of my questions was whether we were going to do that in this unconference. And then my second question was about, you said that some of the outcomes of the unconference would go to the global conference. I just wondered, what exactly does that mean? Are you going to have a session where people commit to take things forward, or how does it work out of, well, we've learned this and that, and we want to take out of this that we will push this forward, so there's some kind of accountability of what happened out of the conference. It had an impact. How do we evaluate that it had an impact at the end?
Oh gosh, Your first question's easier than the second, admittedly. The first one, yeah. So we will want to be documenting what happens in sessions, and we will have some forms around so that you can easily fill stuff out. But the other thing that we definitely will be doing is if you've used flip chart paper, like if you're generating anything in your session, we will take pictures of it and then get those transcribed and shared later. And also to say, I think I know, you know, I'm co-chair of something called the Data Literacy Consortium, and our whole goal is to get data literacy practitioners to be sharing expertise. We would definitely want to be feeding a lot of the outcomes that are coming out of this into the consortium, and could possibly be having a follow-up call about that. In terms of the OGP Summit, so we want to definitely, you know, have a list of, and I think it's the ideas that would be helpful to be explored more into the summit. I think the thing that we are, because the summit is already pretty rigidly designed and put together, right? There's already panels, there's already presentations. The bit in terms of how this impacts, so at the end, I will want to get like everyone to do a list of like, here are topics, here are things that we think should be moved forward in terms of the summit. You guys are going to have to be your own advocates, right? In terms of how does that get taken forward into the summit. So anytime you are going to a panel or a presentation, anywhere that you have the ability to interject, right? I think that is a more stronger way that can happen. I am curious if any of my other unconference organizers, I think Nadia, you might be it on the call right now, if you have any other sense of how that might work. But to me, that seems like the best advice to be giving people in terms of how do we take this forward into the summit.
Yeah, I think like you made really good points. I could add maybe, well, we could draw from the collective knowledge. There's a lot of people here that I know that have been involved in organizing conferences forever. I'm not going to point out, but they know who I'm speaking about. But maybe we could try to share a hashtag where we could try to post on Twitter like findings from each session, and then we could do a publication like a thread. So we can capture like live impressions on what's going on in each session, which could be actually really good then to try to come up with a summary aside from taking notes. And I think a hashtag, especially for the unconference, could actually be helpful. And it might also help bringing people in because they will see what interesting conversations we're having.
Great. I will definitely, Nadia, we should definitely make sure, sorry, we can do this together, of what that hashtag is. But in terms of that, Carol, and not to belabor that too much, but I just want to make sure that you feel satisfied, because I actually, you're the first person to actually ask that question. And I want to make sure that we, it's a great question just to make sure that we are answering as best we can, right, in terms of how to do that approach. So just to, Carol, if you just tell me, was that helpful?
Yeah, no, that was very helpful. I think Nathy's suggestion makes a lot of sense. I think having something come out that we can look back and say, you know, these were the kind of key learnings or key things, thoughts that were done, that there's kind of a, I don't want to say like something written, but something written that we can take that, I mean, unconferences are great for learning and sharing and meeting people, but I do think it's also good to have something come out that can move forward into the summit. So I think that's a great idea. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so definitely be your own advocate, and we will be doing a lot of messaging on that during the unconference and afterwards. And the other thing also to say, so I know we will be doing a wall of Post-it notes. One is, what do we want to take forward, you know, in terms of themes and topics as our own advocates into the OGP Summit, but also IODC, there's starting to be some thinking about, you know, what happens at IODC, and that we're far enough away from, right, that we could actually have some impact on it. And I know Fernando will be looking for that specifically, because I think there might be some discussions about what should be at IODC immediately after the conference. So we have some opportunity to influence that as well. Let me see, any other, so let me open it up for two things now. Any other reflections on how to survive or get the most out of an unconference? And is anyone got any questions that we can answer as well, like what Carol has just asked? Please bring your topics, what you want to talk about to the unconference. We definitely want to make sure that you have the space for what you want to discuss, and particularly around data literacy. We'll also be talking a little bit more deeply about how we carry all of this forward out into the world, I should say. So appreciation to everyone for that. I can let you reclaim another, this is a good question, Richard, and I'm glad you brought it up because I need to remind everyone. So how many people have registered so far? Is it just the 12 of us? Richard, we are currently at, I think, 110. So that'll give you an idea of the size of the scale. We are at 110. We have had probably a good, I'd say 30 to 40 people sign up just in the last 2 days, and that's been since the schedule has gone live. Yeah, holy moly. So the other thing just to say is, if you know anyone that should come to the unconference, you want to get them registered as soon as possible, because we are going to have to shut down, yes, at 150. So once I got 150 people registered, I have to turn the registration off and turn people away. So if you know people, get them now. And also just to say that, Nadi, if I don't think you've registered, so like I need to get like even the core people registered to make sure that we've got the the right.
I'll sign up right now. Go
sign up, get in. So so yeah, anyone you know that should be there, please have them sign up. Do take a closer look at the link in terms of how to get the most out of an unconference. Let me just actually put that in the room so that people have it easily. There we go. And take a look at that. You guys have done a great job of building onto that, so I am very grateful. Thank you all for coming. This has completely been recorded. I am going to do some editing, basically editing out the time when you guys were all off talking in your small groups where I didn't give you enough time to get further deeply into topics. But we will be distributing that to everybody so they can benefit from this conversation as well. And with that, I just have to say, very, very pleasant. I hope you all have smooth and very uneventful travel to Ottawa, and that we get to see you all on Wednesday morning. So thanks, everyone. And just to say goodbye.
Bye.